Yellow Blue Turtle 77. It's me, Greg Miller. I just came off stream, and I want to knock out this response to you. I'm going to read it again so it's fresh in my mind, and then we will discuss. Blue Turtle 77 says, as a reviewer, should Game Over Greggy host a massive PR event? Does he need to excuse himself from every upcoming game review for the next 18 months? He's the best. He's the funniest dude in gaming by a long shot. This is confusing. So the TLDR on this one for me, Turtle, as I will call you for the rest of the thing, is no. No, I shouldn't. I'm not gonna excuse myself or recuse myself from reviews. But I think it's interesting to delve into that, right? So first off, it's interesting that you bring up E3 as the example. And for the record, I'm not at all mad at you, and I'm not at all being sarcastic. I love talking about shit like this. You know that I love games, journalism, enthusiast, press, the industry, and my side of it, and how it interacts with the audience, how it interacts with publishers and developers, and yada yada yada. But so top level. No, I don't think I shouldn't review a game for the next 18 months. I think it's interesting before we even get into it that, I guess it's not even get into it. Part of it, right, is that you bring up E3 as the example when I would say me hosting EA Play, me hosting when I went and did the Guild Wars thing, me hosting a panel at PAX that I'm, paid to appear at and host and stuff would be a greater conflict of interest, which would lead to this kind of question. PR in E3 in general, right? I think is, and granted, I know this is easy for me to say because you haven't seen E3, you don't know what it's going to be like. E3 in general is very much like this year me hosting the IGN live show, where it's not me being paid by the companies, right? I'm being paid by E3 to come host this thing and go, here's what I think is going to happen at Xbox. What do you think, Jackie? What do you think, Golden Boy? All right, blah, 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 talk. All right, cool. Here it is. It's time for the Xbox conference. Everybody go check it out. And then we come out of it and go, what did you think of the Xbox conference? Everybody, we talk about it that way. The same stuff I do on Kind of Funny, where something like EA Play, of course, is me NDA'd to hell. I know everything else. I go out there, I do multiple takes and all these different things and stuff. But either way you want to slice it, I think you want to talk about EA Play or you think E3 is the exact same thing, even though I don't think it is because, again, E3 I'm not being pre-briefed on for the most part. We actually told them not to tell us things because we want to react honestly. And I'm allowed to say, obviously, that's not my kind of game, but whatever. But put them in the same bucket for this conversation, right? So to your real point, should I not review games for the next 18 months? My answer, of course, is no. I should review games for the next 18 months. But it's very interesting, right? Because I don't think, and I doubt the audience thinks that I'm a game reviewer anymore. Like I did that. That's what I was raised as at IGN. That's what I came up doing, right? And then when I switched over to Up at Noon, and we got Up at Noon going that first year, they were like, you know what? You can't review games anymore. It's a conflict of interest because you are doing sponsored things and yada yada yada. And I moved over to being a video personality, a video host who still has opinions about games, or who had opinions about games, who would go on GameScoop and beyond and talk about it that way, but wasn't doing scored reviews or anything like that. Now, to take that and, evolve it way out to where we are with Kind of Funny 6.5 years later with Kind of Funny, which is outrageous to think about, I would argue that I don't think people think of us as game reviewers anymore. If anything, game critics, game pundits, game personalities, where we talk about games. We'll do a Gamescast review of a game, but we're not Metacritic rated. We're not putting a score on it. We're not, going out and saying this is the end all be all review. We're only doing discussions. We're only talking about things that way. And so, again, there's multifacets to this entire argument, every example I bring up. But I think that at the base level is why we would recuse ourselves here. Tim and I have had conversations before of, man, what if IGN, don't tell myself that. What if Kind of Funny keeps growing the way we do, and one day we do want to be Metacritic verified. One day we do want to have an editorial team that is, hey, Blessing's doing video reviews, and we're doing this, and we're putting scores up, we're making a big deal about that. And that has led to us having conversations of, well, if that happened, then we probably would need to do not a hard shift, but because really, how much paid work do we do? A conversation about what an editorial team would look like and what the standards and ethics and all of that would be, and it would be the fact that I probably want to be a part of it, even though I'm treasured that you and I love that you think of me as a game reviewer and stuff, because I am a game critic and game pundit or whatever. But again, to that point, I think that would be a hard shift for us, and that would put us into a different ballpark. Whereas right now, we get to exist in this interesting sphere that doesn't rely or doesn't need that level of accountability, I guess. Doesn't need that level of nuance to it. And then to bring it more out of again and have this conversation, again, more about right now and not futures and things like that. Again, to why I don't think you would need this is that, and I don't know who you are. I don't know how much Kind of Funny content you consume. I don't think anything like that. My argument here would be that Kind of Funny is still such a small fish in the pond, right? That if you're coming to Kind of Funny for a review, you already know our ethics policy, which of course is that we'll tell you everything. That you will know that. I say it all the time, right? Of like, oh, well, I guess we did all the time. We would do like Final Fantasy 15 of like, oh yeah, remember Tim and I hosted that reveal event, so take this with a grain of salt. Like we say that kind of thing. And granted, if you're a first timer and you're showing up, you only know me from that event, you come here, you might be like, why the fuck would I listen to this guy? He's just, clearly he got paid at one thing. But from us launching in 2015 to where we are now, the idea has been you come there because you know us and you know that we wear this on our sleeves and you know that nobody could ever pay us enough that we would sacrifice our authenticity or our credibility. And so it's like I was talking about right now, a couple of months ago now, we did an ad on the shows that was for Final Fantasy VII Integrate, right? And it was, somebody asked totally respectfully of like, hey, they're doing this ad, and like I know they've done game ads before, but it's usually mobile or it's usually something that's already been out a while. This is a game that isn't out yet. Is that weird? Do you make it, does that make you worry about the reviewer kind of thing? Okay. And we addressed it head on. I mean, most of the audience was like, no, of course not. We know the guys. But then also I stepped in and was like, no, I understand it and I understand why you think that way. But to be clear, like our policy is whenever we do something like this is like, sure, totally, we'll do this, especially for Final Fantasy VII, a game, we gave Game of the Year, right, when we did the initial version. But I was like, they understand that if this game comes out and we don't like it, we're going to say this game's garbage. Straight up, right? And like, I guess Cyberpunk, right? Like, think about that. Like, I had done some GameSpot Expo unboxing thing for them once, right? But they knew that if their game came out and didn't live up to the hype, we would say it didn't live up to the hype, which we did. And so your question, I love, and I want it to be asked, and I want anybody ever who has this kind of question to ask it, or this thought, right? But I would hope our track record of working in the games industry and having partners and having sponsorships and doing different panels and things like that speaks to the fact that if we don't like something, we still say we don't like it in the end. You know what I mean? Like I still go back to, the thing I love about the job, and one of the things I love about the job, because clearly there's a million, is the idea, or is going and talking to developers about the project they've been working on and how much they love their game and what they think's cool about it. And that means that you can go watch any number of Up at Noons where I host an interview that is a game I'm not going to play, or is a game that does come out eventually and I don't like, or IGN hated, or something like that. It's the same idea here. With the specific things of, I go back to EA Play because I think that's a better example, no offense, than your E3 example. EA Play would be something where, look at the number of EA games that came out of the 2 EA Plays? 2? 3? Look at the EA Plays I've hosted and the things I liked and didn't like or didn't give a shit about when they actually came out or really loved or were bad. And like, you get the honest read there. You've never seen me toe a line. You've never seen me pull up and be like, well, actually, maybe I shouldn't say that about EA. Because number one, I made point clear a long time ago when I started working them that I'd be able to say whatever the hell I wanted to. And number two, if they were to look at me and be like, oh, well, you said this after the fact, so we wouldn't work with you again, more power to you. I wouldn't want to work with you if you're that kind of asshole. But none of the people we do are, because people understand that like the reason Kind of Funny matters and the reason I have an audience is because we trade in authenticity. And so if for if we ever sold out on that level where it was clear this game's garbage, and we were like, it's great, don't want, and like you were like, but this sucks, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think it's great. Like, don't get me wrong, I like a lot of bad games that I know other people don't like to. What up, Avengers? I enjoyed Fallout 76 for the weeks I played it or whatever. I digress. That's what we're working with here, and so for E3, I mean. It's interesting because you say massive PR event. Again, I know I'm splitting hairs here. So take everything I'm saying and just apply it to EA Play. EA and E3, I don't think it's the same thing. E3 is a massive PR event, but I'm covering it the way I covered it at IGN, right? And like in IGN, I wouldn't be like in an interview like, well, your game sucks, but congratulations to fucking getting the game out to preview or something like that. I know that's not what you're saying either. But long and short of it is, I don't think the industry at large looks at me and goes, Greg Miller is a video game reviewer. I think they might say he's a critic, he's personality, a pundit, or whatever. But I don't think I'm held to the gold seal standard, where I don't think many people show up and are looking for a scored review from me, not on Metacritic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that puts it in a different thing. Nor have we ever said we're editorial, right, in a way that like we take ourselves editorial. Like, you know, the example obviously is like at IGN, right? When I was editorial, there was the advertising team, obviously, and there was a wall between them. I didn't know who was what. I didn't know if I was reviewing a game, if it was going to be an ad buy on the top of the, you know, page or whatever. I think I might be out of time because I've talked for 10 minutes. I forget how long a Twitter video can be. They gave me more. I think I can go over 10 minutes. We'll see, I guess, when I put it up. Anyways, you know, there's a wall between editorial and advertising. It's kind of funny, clearly there isn't, but it's because we're also not trying to do that kind of editorial. We're coming out and talking about the things we love and hate about video games. And if somebody's going to work with us, they're going to understand that we can still say whatever we love or hate about video games. And the audience, you know, understands that. I'm not saying that you don't understand that. I'm just thinking that that's the at times unspoken, but I do think we say it a lot, agreement we have between each other, right? Of like, yeah, we're going to go do this stuff, but we'll still tell you what we actually think about a game or something to that effect. Does that make sense, Turtle? I need you to let me know. And I think I answered as needed. Yeah. And again, I think if I was Metacritic verified, I think if we were putting up things and being like definitive review, Kind of Funny is a place for, like, that's the thing, I guess, right? You never, when I talk about what Kind of Funny is, I'm never like, it is the premier source for video game reviews. Like, no, we talk about video games. That's all we do. And so we talk in the same way your friends talk. And I'm lucky enough that since I talk non-fucking stop about my entire life and what's going on, people seem to get that I can go host something like an EA Play or an E3, I guess, and come back and do it. But maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you think. You don't have to make a giant video about it. Just let me know, I guess, if this makes sense. Sorry I'm burping here at the end of the video. All right, I'm going to cut this off and send it to you.